A bobcat with haunted eyes, a woman who had already lost everything, and a snowstorm that would bind their fates forever. In the heart of a frozen forest, something wild was about to change. He should have never trusted her. She should have never brought him home. But what happened between them, that bond, that transformation, would leave even seasoned rangers speechless. The Woman and the Winter Silence. Ely, Minnesota, January. The snow didn't fall that morning. It pressed, thick and relentless, sealing the world in ice and breathless silence. The kind of cold that makes every creak of wood and whistle of wind feel like a warning. Rachel Byrne stood at the edge of her porch, wrapped in a wool coat 2 sizes too big, her breath fogging in the still air. 30 yards away the tree line loomed, shadowy, white-draped sentinels standing guard over the edge of wilderness. It had been months since she'd last spoken to another soul in person. The old cabin, once her brother's retreat, had become her shelter and her penance. Inside, a wood stove hissed quietly, logs crackling. Along the back wall, small cages lined with towels sheltered wounded raccoons, a limping fox, and a screech owl recovering from frostbite. Rachel had found purpose here, away from the city noise, the noise of memories. Each animal was a puzzle, fearful, hurt, guarded, just like her. She crouched near a crate holding a juvenile rabbit with a frostbitten ear and whispered softly, "You're gonna be okay, buddy. You just need time." Her voice cracked slightly on the word time. She swallowed it down. Rachel was 29, but the years etched around her green eyes made her look older. Her auburn hair was usually tied up in a messy knot, and her hands were always calloused, either from chopping wood or bandaging paws. Since her brother Caleb died on a rescue mission the year before, she'd poured everything into saving animals. Because she hadn't been able to save him. At 10 a.m. she noticed it. Faint indentations in the snow. Tracks. Fresh ones. She grabbed her insulated boots, laced them quickly, and stepped outside, the door clicking behind her. She walked toward the tree line, boots crunching in the snow. The prints were feline, bigger than a house cat, rounder than a coyote's, and there were flecks of red staining the snow beside them. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct told her to turn back. A wounded predator wasn't something to meddle with alone, but she didn't pause. Not today. Something tugged her forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe, deep down, she wasn't afraid of the wild anymore. She followed the trail for a quarter-mile through the thinning trees until she saw it. A huddled form beside a fallen birch. Reddish-gray fur, matted with blood. Tufted ears. And those eyes. Not hostile, not submissive. Just tired. A bobcat. Young. Maybe 2 years old. Front leg twisted unnaturally. Breathing shallow. Rachel knelt in the snow, heart pounding. The wild stared back. "I'm not here to hurt you," she whispered. "I know what it feels like and to be caught and not know if anyone's coming." She slowly unzipped her pack and pulled out a wool blanket. "Let's get you home." The wild doesn't cry out. It watches, waits, and bleeds in silence. Rachel didn't move for a long moment. The bobcat stared at her, its ears twitching once, more from effort than aggression. It was beautiful in a raw, fractured way, about twice the size of a house cat. Its dense winter coat shimmered with frost, marred only by the dark blood that crusted along its front left leg. The iconic bobtail flicked once, then went still. She could tell it was male, young, maybe 2 winters old. But that wasn't what held her frozen in place. It was his eyes. Not feral, not afraid, just tired. Rachel had seen that look in the mirror too many times. She inched closer, her boots pressing softly into the snow. "I'm not going to take your wildness," she whispered. "Just the pain, okay?" She stopped 3 feet away. His breathing was shallow now, labored. Likely the leg had been caught in a snare or trap. Maybe he got free. Maybe someone let him go. Either way, if she didn't act now, he wouldn't make it through the night. She pulled the wool blanket slowly from her bag. No sudden movements. The bobcat's pupils dilated, muscles twitching. But he didn't flee. Couldn't. His body shivered as she draped the blanket across his back with agonizing slowness. Then, in a breathless instant, she lunged forward, not with force but with conviction, and wrapped the rest of him gently in the blanket. He growled, low and pitiful, more confusion than threat. "It's okay," she said, voice trembling as she pressed him against her chest. "I've got you." He didn't fight. That scared her more than if he had. With a grunt, she lifted him into her arms. He was heavier than he looked, maybe 30 pounds, all compact muscle and wounded pride. The snow had started to fall again, soft flakes melting against her flushed face as she trudged back through the forest, her legs shaking beneath the weight. Inside the cabin, she cleared space in the quarantine pen and gently lowered him onto a padded towel. His golden eyes fluttered shut for a moment, but opened again as she touched his fur. He didn't hiss, didn't bite, just watched. Rachel knelt beside him, her breath hitching as she examined the wound. Deep laceration, no broken bones, possibly a tendon tear. The leg would need stitching, antibiotics, maybe surgery if infection set in. She reached for her gloves and medical kit. "You're gonna make it," she said quietly, "but you'll need to trust me." As she cleaned the wound, the bobcat flinched once, then lay still. She stitched in silence. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the pine trees against the roof. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, warmer, more alive. She looked down at the cat. "Shadow," she whispered. "That's what I'll call you." The bobcat didn't respond, but his tail twitched once in acknowledgement. Bridges of ice. The first fractures. Healing isn't gentle. It's clawed, stubborn, and earned inch by inch. For the first 3 days, Rachel barely slept. Shadow lay curled in the corner of the quarantine pen, breathing low and shallow, his wounded leg tucked tightly beneath his chest. The fire crackled nearby, casting flickering light across his spotted coat. Despite the warmth, he shivered intermittently, more from exhaustion and fear than cold. Rachel checked on him every hour, sometimes just to make sure he was still breathing. She'd treated foxes, hawks, even a badger once, but never a bobcat. Never something so raw, so wild, and so heartbreakingly broken. On the 4th morning, he tried to stand. It was early. The sun hadn't yet breached the ridge, and the snow still fell outside in thin, whispering curtains. Rachel had just poured a mug of coffee when she heard the sound, a scrape, a soft thud, then the creak of metal. She turned quickly. Shadow had risen, wobbled, and collapsed against the side of the pen. Their eyes met. She didn't speak, just watched, waited. He tried again, paw trembling, muscles stiff. This time, he made it halfway up before slumping down again, a frustrated snarl bubbling from his throat. Rachel walked over slowly, crouched beside the enclosure, and whispered, "You don't have to prove anything. Just breathe." Shadow looked at her. Not past her, not through her. At her. That was the moment it began. She didn't push him after that. She left food, venison bits and warm goat milk, at the edge of the pen and stepped back. Sometimes he ignored it. Sometimes, after hours, she'd return to find the bowl licked clean. It was never consistent. He didn't trust her yet, but he didn't fear her either. That was something. By the end of the week, Rachel removed the top of the crate, leaving only the steel gate. He could see more of the cabin now, the soft light from the wood stove, the movement of other rescued animals, the slow rhythm of her presence. Still, he remained curled in his corner, watching. 2 weeks in, he let her touch his paw. It happened late one evening. Rachel was changing the dressing on his leg, her fingers precise, her breathing steady. He flinched as usual, but didn't pull away. She froze. His eyes locked on hers. She felt her throat tighten. "You're letting me in," she whispered. He blinked once, slow and deliberate, the kind of blink that said, "I see you. I know you're here." From that day on, she spoke to him often, not just about his wound or food, but about her brother. The silence after he died. The reason she stayed out here, but far from the life she used to know. Some nights, she cried quietly beside the pen. Shadow would lift his head slightly, ears angled toward her voice, and then settle again, eyes half-lidded. It wasn't affection yet, but it wasn't distance either. By the third week, Rachel made a choice. She opened the pen, just a few inches, just enough to let Shadow know he could step out, or stay. She didn't force him, she never would. The wild couldn't be leashed, only welcomed. At first he did nothing. Then, one night, she awoke to the softest sound, a faint creak of floorboards. She didn't move. Shadow had left the pen. He was moving, carefully, around the room. She watched through half-lidded eyes as he sniffed the wood stove, paused beside the owl's perch, then sat, in the middle of the cabin floor, just watching the fire. She said nothing, just let him be. From that night forward, the pen remained open. The days fell into a rhythm. Rachel mended gear, chopped firewood, cleaned enclosures. Shadow roamed when he pleased, mostly resting near the window or lying beside the fire. He never touched the other animals, never growled. But he always knew where she was. He'd lift his head when she entered a room. His ears would twitch when she sang softly while boiling water. And if she stepped outside, he'd press his nose to the glass until she returned. Not because he needed her, but because, perhaps, he didn't want to be alone either. The first test came with the mail, a package from a wildlife center in Duluth. Rachel opened the door to retrieve it, and a gust of wind blew snow through the threshold. Shadow, startled by the sudden noise, bolted. She spun around, but instead of attacking, instead of hiding, he froze halfway across the room, his breath visible in the cold air. He looked at her, wide-eyed, muscles trembling. She said one word, "Shadow," and he stopped running. That was the day she knew. Trust was growing. Uneven, fragile, but real. She sat beside him later that night, both of them wrapped in separate silences. "You're not meant to be here forever," she whispered, stroking his side slowly. "But while you are, I'll do right by you." Shadow didn't purr, didn't move, but he didn't pull away. And in that stillness, with the snow howling beyond the cabin walls, a bridge formed. Not of words, not of training, but of something deeper, something primal. Shadow was still wild, but for now, he was hers. Sometimes the fiercest creatures need nothing more than someone who stays. Where wild meets warmth. The fourth week came with a silence that was different. Not empty, but expectant. The storm outside had dragged on for days. Snow piled thick against the cabin walls. The sky remained an endless gray lid, pressing down on the forest like a weight. Inside, the world was still. No wildlife calls, no crunch of snow under hooves or paws. Even the rescued animals sensed it. The fox curled deeper into his straw bedding. The owl barely stirred. Rachel moved with quiet purpose, her steps measured, her thoughts slower. Every motion, every whisper had become a ritual. It wasn't just about care anymore. It was about companionship. A word she hadn't used since before Caleb died. Shadow followed her now. Not always close, not with affection, but with presence. When she made tea, he lay near the hearth. When she read, he perched atop a bench by the window. If she left the room, he shifted, subtly, lazily, to where he could still see her. One afternoon, she caught him watching her hand as she moved a brush across her notebook. Not the food, not the fire. Her. She smiled without meaning to. "You're curious," she murmured. "That's good." That night, everything changed. Shadow had just finished a full meal, fresh rabbit she'd prepared after a donation from a local hunter, and lay by the fire, grooming his shoulder with slow, deliberate licks. Rachel sat cross-legged nearby, a cup of mint tea cooling in her hand. "You remind me of him," she said aloud, not expecting a response. "The way you listen, the way you act like nothing matters but see everything anyway." She took a long breath, the kind that trembled at the end. "He was quiet too, my brother. But his eyes, they held this storm, you know?" Shadow didn't move. His gaze remained fixed on the flames, but his ears twitched toward her. Rachel chuckled softly, eyes moist. "He would have liked you, said you were untamable, would have tried to win you over with jerky." Outside, wind slammed against the window pane, and then, as if on cue, Shadow stood. Rachel looked up, surprised. He walked toward her, slow and steady, every step deliberate, not crouching, not cautious, certain. He stopped just a foot away, golden eyes locking onto hers. She held her breath. Shadow moved closer, pressed his forehead lightly against her shoulder, and sat beside her. No flinch, no growl. Rachel blinked hard, her throat tight. "Hey," she whispered. "It's okay." Her fingers, trembling slightly, lifted and found the thick fur at his neck. He didn't move. She stroked once, then again. His eyes half closed. A low, rhythmic sound, not quite a purr, but a deep, satisfied grunt, rose from his chest. Tears welled, uninvited. She leaned her head gently against his. And in that moment, the girl who had lost everything and the creature who trusted nothing sat in a quiet, broken cabin, holding each other together without a single word. From that night on, Shadow changed. He began sleeping beside the hearth instead of under the table. When Rachel walked outside, he followed, paws crunching the snow a few steps behind. She never used a leash, never called him. He just came. When she chopped wood, he sat nearby, tail flicking occasionally. When she hung laundry on the line, he circled the clearing, ears perked, watching for threats. And when she sang, softly, often unconsciously, he'd lie still, eyes closed, as though the sound smoothed something rough inside him. The bond wasn't tame. It wasn't domestic. It was mutual. One day, a visiting park ranger named Ellis dropped by. He was middle-aged, sturdy, and skeptical. "You're telling me he doesn't bite? A full-grown bobcat?" he asked, disbelief clear in his tone. Rachel simply opened the cabin door. Shadow stepped out, blinked at the man, then lay down on the porch with a yawn. Ellis scratched his head. "I've worked wildlife rescue 15 years. Never seen anything like it." Rachel smiled, leaning on the doorframe. "You're not seeing a pet. You're seeing a choice." Still, not every day was calm. Shadow had his moods. Some nights he paced restlessly, eyes darting toward the woods. Other times, he growled softly at the wind, a primal warning to things unseen. Once, he bolted into the trees and returned an hour later with blood on his whiskers. Rachel never asked. He was wild, and she never forgot that. But he always came back. Late one evening, during the heart of the storm season, the power went out. The cabin went black. Rachel fumbled for the lantern, heart thudding. Then, soft pressure. Shadow's head pressed against her thigh. She froze, not in fear, but in awe. "You knew," she whispered, kneeling down. He blinked slowly, deliberately, reassuringly. She wrapped an arm around him, buried her face in his fur. "I'm not alone," she murmured. And for the first time in a very, very long time, she believed it. It's not the cold that kills. It's the moment you stop believing you'll be found. The blizzard struck faster than the forecast had warned. By dawn, the sky had turned a lifeless gray. By noon, it was gone completely, swallowed by walls of wind and snow that tore through the forest like a living thing. Visibility dropped to near zero. Even the trees vanished behind swirling veils of white. Rachel should have stayed inside, but the call had come in just before noon. A stranded moose calf spotted by snowmobilers 2 miles north, likely injured, limping near the edge of Devil's Ridge. She knew the terrain, knew the weather was turning. But she also knew what it meant for a baby moose to be left alone in this storm. They didn't survive. Neither did she, not fully, when she didn't try. She'd told Shadow to stay, though she doubted he understood. He sat by the window, ears alert, as she bundled in thick snow gear and strapped on her snowshoes. The wind howled as she stepped out, tugging at her coat like cold hands. "I'll be back before dark," she'd said, more to herself than anyone. That was 3 hours ago. Now, lost somewhere between Devil's Ridge and a frozen riverbed, Rachel's world was nothing but white. Her compass spun uselessly, the wind throwing snow sideways in blinding sheets. Her legs ached. Her hands, despite gloves, throbbed with numbness. She fell once, a patch of ice, hidden beneath a drift, and twisted her ankle. Bad. She bit her lip until it bled, forced herself upright, and limped onward. But every step felt wrong. The forest was gone. The sky was gone. Even her thoughts began to blur around the edges. She wasn't even sure if she was still heading north. Then, silence. No wind, no sound. Just the slow, soft crunch of her own footsteps until that too faded. Her body was shaking. Not from cold anymore. From something deeper. The slow loss of heat from the core. The body's final withdrawal. She collapsed beside a fallen pine, breath hitching in short, frantic gasps. "I should have stayed," she whispered. The snow fell around her like ash. She closed her eyes. For the first time since Caleb died, Rachel Byrne didn't believe she'd be found. The wild that wouldn't let go. Some instincts don't fade, even when buried beneath fear or fur. Back at the cabin, Shadow waited. The wind slammed hard against the walls, rattling the windows like fists. The snow had risen halfway up the porch. Visibility was gone. But inside, the fire still burned, flickering low. And Shadow sat motionless, golden eyes fixed on the door Rachel had walked through hours ago. She hadn't returned. The fox in the corner stirred restlessly. The owl blinked wide eyes. Every animal in the cabin felt it, the wrongness. Shadow stood suddenly, ears back, muscles tight. He paced once, twice. Then, as if pulled by a thread he could no longer ignore, he moved toward the door, sniffed, low growl. Then, he leapt. A crash of glass shattered the cabin's quiet as Shadow launched himself through the window, landing in a swirl of snow and ice. The cold hit like a hammer, but he didn't hesitate. His nose dropped to the frozen ground, sifting through wind, ice, and fading scent. Rachel's scent. He found it, and he ran. The bobcat's lithe form vanished into the white, barely more than a shadow streaking across the storm. Every few yards, he stopped, sniffed, adjusted course. The wind fought him. The cold cut him. But he moved with purpose, relentless, primal. Miles away, Park Ranger Ellis was returning from checking traps when he spotted it. A bobcat, running through the storm, alone. He slowed his snowmobile, squinting through the gale. "What the hell?" He followed. For 30 minutes, they weaved through trees, past drifts, over ice, until, up ahead, something dark against the snow. A shape, Rachel. She was half buried beneath powder, curled beside a fallen pine. Her face, pale, lips blue, and beside her, pressing his body tight against her side, was the Bobcat. Shadow. Ellis dropped to his knees. "Oh my God!" Shadow growled low, warning, but didn't attack. "Easy, boy," Ellis murmured, pulling off his gloves. "I'm here to help her, just like you did." Rachel's eyes fluttered open. "Shut down." Her voice was barely a whisper. Ellis radioed for help, covered her with his coat, then reached to lift her. Shadow stepped aside, slowly, warily, but didn't leave, even as they loaded her onto the snowmobile. Even as the storm howled louder, even as they vanished into the whiteness. Shadow followed, all the way back. Sometimes, to be saved, we have to be seen, not as broken, but as worth the effort. Rachel awoke to the sound of slow beeping. The warmth around her was unfamiliar, not the dry crackle of firewood, but the sterile hum of electric heat. Her limbs ached, her throat burned, but her mind raced only toward one question. "Shadow?" Ellis leaned over her hospital bed, his parka still dusted with snow. Relief flooded his weathered face. "You're awake." "Where?" she began, but her voice cracked. He handed her a small cup of water. "Easy. You've been out for over 12 hours. Severe hypothermia. If we'd found you an hour later." But Rachel wasn't listening. Her eyes scanned the room, sterile white walls, soft sheets, a window frosted with snow. No sign of fur, of golden eyes, of the creature that had followed her into the storm. "He saved me," she whispered. Ellis nodded. "Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. He led me right to you, sat on your chest like a goddamn space heater, wouldn't let me near you at first. I swear he knew." Rachel's hand clutched the blanket. "Where is he?" Ellis sighed. "Outside. Refused to come in. But he's waiting." The next day, when she was discharged, bundled tight in borrowed layers, she stepped onto the clinic porch. The wind had calmed. The snow glittered under a weak sun. And there he was, at the edge of the parking lot. Shadow. Not moving, just watching. Rachel limped forward, boots crunching over ice. Her vision blurred from more than just the cold. "Hey," she called softly. The Bobcat blinked. His ears flicked once. Then he walked toward her, slowly, deliberately, and stopped just a few feet away. She knelt, ignoring the pain in her leg. Her gloved hand reached out, trembling. Shadow leaned forward, pressed his forehead to her chest. Tears spilled from Rachel's eyes. Behind them, nurses gasped through the glass. Ellis just stood there, shaking his head in awe. "Everyone's asking about you," he told her later. "The girl with the Bobcat. Local news wants an interview. Some sanctuary folks are curious. Might want to take him." "They can't have him," Rachel said quietly. "You sure?" "It's not legal to keep a wild." "He's not captive. He's free. But he chooses to stay." She looked out the window at Shadow, lying by the porch, tail curled around his paws. "You don't cage a soul that saved yours." Ellis stared at her, then nodded. "I'll file the permits. Might take some wrangling. But if anyone can prove a bond like this, it's you two." Rachel smiled. Shadow yawned. Outside, the snow began to fall again. Soft, peaceful, as if the storm had finally passed. Love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means stepping aside. Spring came late that year. The snow clung stubbornly to the shadowed corners of the forest, and the air still held the bite of frost in the mornings. But the sun stayed a little longer each evening, and with it came change. Shadow was healing, and so was Rachel. The scar on her ankle would never fully disappear, but she walked without pain now. The local wildlife commission had approved a sanctuary license, allowing her to continue caring for Shadow under the condition that he remained free to come and go. And that's exactly what he did. Some days he would disappear into the woods for hours, hunting maybe, exploring, testing the edges of his freedom. But he always returned, sometimes with snow still clinging to his whiskers, other times with a streak of blood on his chin. Rachel never asked what he'd faced out there. She just opened the door and let him in. But as the snow melted and the trees grew bold with green, something in Shadow shifted. He slept less by the fire, spent more time at the tree line. His ears twitched constantly, his eyes scanning the horizon. The wild was calling, and she knew it. One morning, she stood on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching him sit near the edge of the woods. The sun painted his coat in gold. "I always knew this day would come," she said quietly. Shadow turned his head slightly. Just enough. She walked down to him, knelt in the dew-damp grass, and reached out. He leaned in, let her press her forehead to his once more. "Go," she whispered. "You don't owe me anything." Shadow pulled back, his eyes locked on hers. No fear, no confusion, only understanding. He turned, walked into the woods, didn't look back. Rachel stayed there for a long time, listening to the rustle of leaves, the chirp of new bird song. Her chest ached, not from loss, but from the fullness of it all. He was where he belonged. So was she. Months passed. Summer came. Then autumn. The cabin grew quiet again, but not empty. She'd taken in a young fox kit, rescued a bald eagle with a torn wing, and begun hosting educational visits for local schools. Word had spread. The woman with the bobcat had stories worth hearing. One evening, nearly a year to the day since he left, she sat on the porch watching the first flakes of snow drift from the sky. A sound caught her ear. Software patted. She turned. And there he was, Shadow. Taller now, leaner, a thin scar over one eye. Wilder, and yet still him. He walked up the porch steps, paused. Rachel didn't speak. She just opened the door. He stayed that night, and by dawn, he was gone again. But that was enough. Because some souls, like some doors, are meant to remain open, just in case love decides to return. In a world where silence often screams the loudest, the bond between Rachel and Shadow reminds us of something quietly powerful. Healing doesn't always come from people. Sometimes it comes on four legs, with wild eyes and a wounded heart. This story isn't just about a bobcat learning to trust again. It's about the walls we build after loss, and the courage it takes to let someone or something back in. Whether it's a person, a place, or a creature, what we choose to nurture often ends up saving us in return. At Paw Prints Stories, we believe every heartbeat has a tale worth telling. And sometimes, the wildest ones are the most human of all. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect. Is there a door in your life you've kept closed, waiting for safety instead of meaning? Here's our challenge to you. Leave that door open, just a little. Let trust walk in, however it looks. You might just find something unexpected waiting in the snow.